Hi, welcome to the Democrats of Napa Valley June meeting. Tonight we have our program on Project 2025. Our moderator for the evening is Conchita Marusic. Conchita, over to you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight, and especially thank Yvonne Brandon, our speaker, and also Jeffrey Levin, who is here, who's going to be, who's also involved in the collaborative. I also just want to mention that Julie Penning wanted to make everybody aware that there will also be watermelon at the ice cream social in case you're not into ice cream. So we want to make everything accessible to everyone. Thank you. All right. Well, first of all, Yvonne, thank you so much for sharing all this information that you and the collaborative have put together. I got an announcement from the Marin, I think it's Susan Bowl who sent an announcement that you were doing this presentation. I missed it, and then she sent me the video of the presentation. I was so excited. I sent it out to everybody, and everybody said, "We have to have her. We need her to come and talk to our group." So thank you so much for coming. It is a very scary thing. This Project 2025 is basically a 900-page right-wing roadmap to authoritarianism. I can't say much more than that. In fact, when I first heard about it, I said, this is another coup. I really feel this is another coup that is out there. People are seeing it, and they definitely want to take our government in a whole new direction. And according to the Project 2025 website, 100 organizations are part of this conservative coalition. Yep. So I went on last night, I looked at the website, I read through all of the different people that are involved in it. And it's a who's who of right-wing groups. Now, first of all, before we talk about Project 2025, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Yvonne Brandon. She is just amazing. She was an executive, a marketing executive with IBM for 23 years. And then she moved to Microsoft, moved up to Washington State. And then she was so horrified by Trump winning in 2016, she retired so that she could put her efforts into trying to get our country back on track. And she joined the Indivisible East Side, where she is currently on their steering committee. And she's the chair of many different committees and is really out there. It sounds like, Yvonne, you're fighting full time at this point. So we really appreciate it. In 2020, Yvonne and 3 other retired marketing executives formed the Freedom Writers Collaborative. Their mission was to create social media toolkits in order to expose the MAGA threat. And they also wanted to help progressive candidates and causes get their message out over the internet. And you're absolutely spot on, Yvonne. That's one of the, I think that Democrats really have to work on is getting the message out. Tonight, Yvonne will help us understand the dangers of Project 2025 and will show us some of the social media toolkits on the collaborative's website. So what we're asking you to do is write down your questions in the chat during her presentation. As they come to you, just write them in there. And then once Yvonne does her presentation, at the end of her talk, we will then go back in and look through the questions that you have. We're hoping that after tonight's presentation, you will all be inspired to start posting some of these very creative and informative graphics that you're about to see. We need to get our message out on the internet to counterbalance all the misinformation that's on the internet. Many people, especially young people, are getting their election information solely from social media, and they're swayed by the people who have the strongest presentation. So that's why we need an army of social media Democrats posting in a steady stream. And I hope all of you will join in some way or other this army of posting Democrats. I'm now going to turn it over to Yvonne, and also would like to thank Jeffrey Levine for being here. He will be assisting Yvonne, and thank you very much to both of you for coming here this evening and getting the message out to our members. Thank you.
Thank you, Conchita. It is our pleasure. Take my word for it.
Thank you.
So, Jeff, if you could pull up the slide deck, I'll go ahead and get started. I just want to thank Conchita and Napa Valley Club for giving Freedom Writers Collaborative this opportunity to share this deep dive into Project 2025. It is a chilling, nearly 1,000-page conservative leadership mandate, they call it, and it has a great deal of specificity as to how it will be implemented. Project 2025 to me feels like a compilation of The Handmaid's Tale, George Orwell's 1984, and Fahrenheit 451, where the firemen actually burn books instead of protecting them. But all those three elements to me come together with this horrible and dangerous plan to end democracy as we know it. They were not quite ready in 2017, but if Trump gets elected this November, they will be ready to push the button on this plan the moment he is declared the winner. They won't wait until the inauguration. They will press the button right away. But before I begin, let me just share how I became aware of and alarmed by Project 2025. As Conchita said, I belong to a multi-state individual group called Freedom Writers Collaborative. We build ready-made, research-validated, issues-based social media toolkits and candidate toolkits around progressive issues to educate voters, especially the digital natives, the 18 to 24 group. They told Pew Research that they get 100% of their news online. So in the summer of 2023, we Freedom Writers sat down and began discussing Project 2025 and decided that we needed to build a social media toolkit on the subject. So our incredible graphic artist, James, created the memes you're going to see throughout the presentation. And you're going to see in just a couple of minutes a video that he put together as well. But my role on the team is writing text to accompany these memes that go into our toolkits. So I downloaded the Heritage Foundation's 920-page document so I could get some talking points to write the text that goes with the relevant meme. And after this was probably, I'm going to say summer of 2023, and I was on a call with moveon.org, and I was like hair on fire, concerned that I didn't see any urgency or even awareness of this sinister plan. And the press was not covering it. They're covering it like a noun, a verb, in Project 2025 now, but it's almost too late. But anyway, so when Move On asked me to make a presentation to their group, I went back to the Heritage Foundation's 2025 PDF. I read it more closely, became much more concerned, and pulled out some of the most distressing details that I'm going to share with you tonight. But as I said, before I do, my co-leader, Jeffrey Levine, is going to play the Project 2025 video that we released with our subject toolkit. So just warning you, it is disturbing. All yours, Jeff.
President Trump, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
I want to dive right into this, a lot to get to.
Good.
The media have failed to expose Donald Trump in a framework that communicates the danger of a 2024 Republican presidency. They continue to treat him as a regular candidate and not the leader of a dangerous anti-democracy party. His Republican Party doesn't even have a platform and has become the first party in modern history without one. The obvious reason is that without a stated platform, their unpopular ideas cannot be challenged in open debate. but in their hubris, they made a mistake.
Project 2025 is a call for you to come work here, Washington, D.C.
A cluster of right-wing extremist groups got together and put all of their dangerous ideas in a 920-page document called Mandate for Leadership, Project 2025. This is the playbook for what they want to happen to America should Trump or any other Republican president take office after winning the next election. Project 2025 is the doom of our multicultural democracy and the end of the rule of law. It dispenses with constitutional checks and balances and concentrates almost unlimited power in the executive branch. The diabolical plan that is Project 2025 was created by Christian nationalists and funded by the fossil fuel industry. Project 2025 has action plans to take away the rights of minorities, quote-unquote leftists, LGBTQIA plus Americans, and anyone who opposes extremist right-wing ideology. Project 2025 is the Mein Kampf of our age, the fully formed master plan for the takeover of the federal government and its weaponization against its own citizens. Now that we know their plan, we can alert voters to this danger. Help us spread the word by going to www.freedomwriterscollaborative.org and share our Project 2025 social media kit.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. By the way, if you are putting either Jeff or me in speaker mode and you point your camera, phone camera at this QR code, you can go to our website and see all of our toolkits, including this one. So anyway, let's go on with the presentation. I hope that didn't scare you too much because I'm about to scare you a whole lot. In the next 20 minutes or so, what I'm going to do is take you through some of the details that might really cause you to lose sleep tonight, knowing that if Joe Biden does not win in November and Trump does, we will begin living in the United States of America that we won't even recognize. Thanks to Project 2025, if Trump wins, this is probably the last vote that we, the people, will ever cast. If he wins, the Heritage Foundation is ready to pull the trigger on all of these well-defined elements the very moment that the race is called for Donald Trump. They're not going to wait for inauguration. They will, they're ready to start right away. And Robert De Niro even said the other night, as he was leaving the courthouse during convicted felon Donald Trump's election interference trial, that if Trump wins, he will never leave office, which is why we'll never have another free and fair election if he gets in. Next slide, Jeff. So Project 2025 was devised under the leadership of the right-wing think tank, the Heritage Foundation, and it's aided by a little over 100 right-wing organizations who built corporate-level executive plans. Jeff and I know what those look like. These are corporate-level executive plans, all intent on packing the next GOP administration with extreme loyalists to Donald Trump or to whomever the conservative president is, but right now it's Trump. We highlighted a couple of people whose names and infamy you might recognize. Mark Meadows, for example, is Trump's former chief of staff and he's CEO of the Conservative Partnership Institute. With their $36 million annual budget from private donors, the group operates as a full-service nerve center for the right-wing activity, and it's a breeding ground for the next generation of Trump loyalists. Let's take Stephen Miller. He's a real peach. He is the architect of Trump's family separation border policy. He's also CEO of America First Legal, which is the organization that's going after diversity, equity, and inclusion under the grievance of reverse racism. And how about Charlie Kirk, another peach? He's CEO of Turning Point USA, which advocates for conservative policies on high schools, colleges, and university campuses. Some of the college presidents who have been called up to Congress for one thing or another have been fired from their institutions because of pressure from Kirk, who is a donor to many of these colleges and universities. He's really dangerous. Next slide, please. So there are 4 pillars to this devious plan. Pillar number 1 is a policy agenda mandate for leadership, the conservative promise, they call it. Think of this as the policy Bible. These are their words, not mine. Policy Bible. The entire book's sole purpose is to reshape federal policy to shift from societal and constitutional norms that we've been living with for 248 years and could result in termination of our freedoms, or we can alert people to the dangers and save our fragile representative democracy that has, until Trump came along, been literally the envy of the world. Pillar number 2 is their personnel database, where resumes from conservative scholars, academics, and policy experts are being compiled. You can think of this pillar as the conservatives' only LinkedIn-like database, where authors of this policy set a goal of having at least 20,000 recruits already in the database. I think they're up to 30 now. But it's a way of having a readily available pool of ideologically aligned people to pull from when it comes to filling the positions they plan to create, as they fire thousands of civil servants who just show up every day to do their jobs. This is, once they control the reign of government, they're going to pull the lever on this. Again, these are their words, not mine. It's in their doctrine. And as they're doing, trying to streamline the confirmation process, they're trying to make sure there are no hiccups, that they are operational right away. Pillar number 3 is the Presidential Administrative Academy. This is an online educational training system built to indoctrinate potential U.S. government employees under the rule of the next conservative or MAGA Republican president. The people who submit their resumes and apply for these jobs are first required to make a loyalty pledge to the president and to obey, dear leaders, every command or face dismissal or possible imprisonment. And this is not a joke. Remember this. Remember, Trump fired FBI Director Jim Comey days after they met because he told Trump that his pledge was to the Constitution of the United States and the rule of law, not to a person. And as angry as I'm probably always going to be with Comey for reopening the Clinton email probe days before the election, I do think he believes he was doing it under honor of duty and not for political purposes. Still, it's hard to forgive him for the horror and hatred that he helped Trump unleash on our country. Pillar number 4 outlines the transition plan in a 180-day playbook that's driven by the policy agenda itself as a roadmap. The Heritage Foundation's preamble, which is this, has been around for decades, all the way back to the Clinton administration and Newt Gingrich's contract with America. These 4 pillars make up Project 2025. Why should we care, and what can we do about it? Well, first, we need to know some details so we can alert friends and family who might not be paying as close attention as we are. So I did a chapter by chapter deep dive into the details of this diabolical plan to dismantle our government as we know it. And I'm going to take you through some of those details. Then we can discuss actions we need to take to make sure everybody knows how important it is to vote in November and to vote for the only functioning political party that still believes in democracy. Next slide, please. The first is government takeover of administrative functions. This is a key element of their administrative goal to reinstate the executive order known as Schedule F. This would reclassify thousands of federal employees as at-will workers and give the administration the ability to fire employees who don't agree or follow the extremist policies suggested by Project 2025. Project 2025 has created, as I said earlier, a training academy for potential employees of the next administration, which provides aspiring appointees with the insight, background knowledge, and expertise in governance to immediately begin rolling back policy and advancing conservative ideas in the federal government. That is a quote as well. The goal of training, which currently consists of 4 online courses on subjects such as Conservative Governance 101, the Administrative State, and the Regulatory Process, is to prepare and equip future political appointees now to be ready on day 1 of the next conservative administration. And it also makes clear that the Justice Department is not going to be independent from the executive branch, and implies that the agency will be used to take legal retribution against whomever Trump decides to investigate. Project 2025's director, Paul Dems, recently appeared on indicted felon Steve Bannon's War Room, his podcast, encouraging viewers of the far right to send in their resumes and participate in Project 2025 training so we can recruit extreme loyalists to the next GOP administration. Next slide. Just a second here. Sorry about that. Lost my place. Aha, here we go. So references to religion are mentioned 115 times. And I want to give you some of those highlights. A healthy society to them is based on the biblical definition of family: a mother, a father, and children. LGBTQ plus families will not be recognized as such. They plan to encourage private businesses to follow the Supreme Court ruling that affirmed discrimination against LGBTQ people, as in the case of the fake web designer who refused to build a website for gay people, and it went before the Supreme Court and they affirmed it, but it turns out it was a complete lie. The guy was a heterosexual male with a female wife and children. They just made it up, and the Supreme Court said, okay. Or how about the woman who refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple? Excuse me. Those organizations I shared a little earlier are behind that case, but they are summarily being brought before a willing Federalist Society-owned Supreme Court. These folks intend to mandate Sunday, the Sabbath day, as a mandatory day off work, including private businesses. And Pastors and Catholics for Trump, it's a real organization, are mobilizing clergy to spread violent Christian nationalist lies from their pulpit. Trump claims that a president should have absolute immunity for anything he does, including being able to arrest, imprison, or even execute his perceived enemies. On its face, it's absurd. However, the Supreme Court took that case up. And after a 3-judge panel on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia said they rejected it back in February. And the conspiracy theorist in me makes me suspicious that the Supreme Court is willing to release their ruling on his absolute immunity on the last day of their term, so that when they rule 6-3, to give him what he wants so that they can quickly leave for their summer break. Maybe we'll forget it. And having made Trump's delay until after the election wish come true. Whew. Next slide, please. Keep doing that. Reproductive rights, yes. On the issue of reproductive rights, these people actually want to establish what they intend to call the Department of Life. This is right out of Margaret Atwood's 1985 Handmaid's Tale. It's a fictional dystopian view of women losing their rights as citizens and serving as vessels to procreate for rich white men. And with the next Republican administration, you should expect a national abortion ban. You should expect women and their doctors to be criminally prosecuted for providing or receiving reproductive services. And as was done in Mississippi, they will criminalize purposeful or accidental destruction of unfertilized frozen embryos in all states. And to put a cherry on top of this thing, they want to eliminate no-fault divorce so that women who are in abusive relationships will not be able to get out of those marriages unless their abusive husband agrees. And by the way, there's another case before the Supreme Court right now. They're probably going to dash on that one too, but it's whether or not someone with a background of abusive relationships against another person can buy or own a gun. So let's watch that one too. Jeff, next slide, please. So there's a lot here, but just the highlights. They want to terminate unlawful investigations into the newly elected president or anyone in his prior cabinet. If elected, Trump has already said he's going to pardon. He's probably going to pardon himself. He hasn't said that, but he has promised to pardon the convicted criminals who attempted to prevent the peaceful transfer of power on January 6th in 2021. They promised military and or police crackdowns on lawful protests, along with jail time or death for protesters without due process. And something Trump really wanted to do, and actually did do during the Black Lives Matter protest, which is to send the military into blue cities that he deems as lawless or high crime, like New York, Chicago, Seattle, Los Angeles, and so on. And naturally, they want to desperately eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion, along with affirmative action programs across the government, the military, and even private businesses. And by the way, DEI is mentioned 39 times and affirmative action, equity, and inclusion 90 times. It is clear that they don't want me in their country. Next slide, please. Project 2025. It eliminates federal protections for LGBTQ plus citizens, including not prosecuting hate crimes against these Americans. It halts all research against gender reassignment and defines transgender citizens as pornographers and groomers, in quotes, who should all be prosecuted according to them, either prosecuted, imprisoned, or removed from Christian society. And of course, they want to reinstate the Clinton era don't ask, don't tell military policies. Next slide, please. There's not much to say here. It's all of these things are, as you heard in the film, they're funded by the oil and natural gas industries. And they will end what they see as government interference in energy decisions and stop the war, they call it, on oil and natural gas, and make sure that the private companies that threaten our climate are no longer federally regulated. It's disgusting. Next slide, please. Immigration.
You don't see the slide?
Yeah, okay, I see it now, sorry. As you might imagine, immigrants are not going to do real well in the authoritarian version of America. They even want to revoke immigration benefits that have traditionally been granted to unaccompanied migrant children. You might not be surprised that the word alien and alien children was used 37 times in that chapter. These people really hate immigrants. And you won't believe their plans for dreamers, including blocking financial aid for up to 2/3 of all American college students. If that state permits certain immigrant groups, including dreamers with legal status, to access in-state tuition. And they'll terminate the legal status of 500,000 dreamers by eliminating staff time for reviewing and processing renewal applications. They'll suspend updates to annual eligible country lists for H-2A and H-2B temporary worker visas, thereby excluding most populations from filling critical roles in agriculture, construction, hospitality, forest service. Imagine how many professionals we're going to lose, especially in medical and scientific research sectors. They will bar citizens from qualifying for federal housing subsidies if they live with anyone who is not a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident. And they will force states to share driver's licenses and taxpayer identification information with federal authorities or risk losing critical funding. In Florida, for example, they already require hospitals to report anyone who can't prove their immigration status to the Florida state government whenever they come in for medical care. Many of the workers who worked in the agriculture and construction industries saw the handwriting on the wall. They dropped their tools and left their crops laying on the ground and to rot as they fled Florida to move to much friendlier states. Florida does not know what they have done. Next slide, please. They plan to eliminate the Department of Education and send your tax dollars and mine to support Christian schools. They want to dumb down what teachers can teach and allow groups like Moms for Liberty to determine what your kids and grandkids can read or learn. We already see what they're doing. They're dismantling public education system by banning books, threatening teachers, librarians, board members, school board members, eliminating slavery from the history of the United States. Or when they do discuss it, they want kids to believe that slaves somehow benefited by gaining useful skills. Slaves brought many of those skills with them from the homeland and taught their masters. Next slide.
Oh, sorry. That's
Yes,
the right slide.
Justice Department. Yes, thank you. I talked about law enforcement a little earlier, but they have really, really special plans for the Justice Department overall. The plan calls for slashing Department of Justice funding, dismantling the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, and sharply reducing any environmental and climate change regulations to favor the fossil fuel industry, as we discussed. They want to eliminate the Department of Commerce and end the independence of federal agencies such as the Federal Communications Commission and the Federal Trade Commission. And as I mentioned earlier, Project 2025 under Trump in a second term would begin by purging nonpartisan civil servants like the EPA scientists and IRS accountants and replacing them with unqualified Trump sycophants. During his first term, I don't know if you remember this, I remember it vividly, Trump gave the US Department of Agriculture researchers an ultimatum. You either lose your job or you move yourself and your entire family at your expense to Kansas. Now, why did he do that? He did that because the agriculture research published an objective analysis of issues such as climate change, the efficiency of food assistance programs, the tax cuts that mostly benefited the rich farmers. And Trump did not take that well. So he told them, you either lose your job or you move to Kansas at your own expense. It's Disgusting. Oh, so next slide, I'm sorry, next slide, please. So that's press, and is that press? Yes, I can see that. One second, please. Okay, press and independence, yes. Restructuring government communications means they want the complete destruction of the independent press, which under our democracy has always been seen as the unofficial fourth branch of government that keeps the government honest and in check and working within the Constitution for the good of its citizens. Well, when Trump came down that golden escalator back in 2016 to announce his candidacy, before he went after immigrants, he called the press the enemy of the people. Mm-hmm. So don't be surprised that Project 2025 demands a centralized media strategy. The project aims to centralize and control messaging across government agencies to ensure consistent and alignment with the administrative goals. Each department will appoint its own strategic communicator to ensure adherence to a centralized media strategy, each aligned with the same conservative messaging framework. We won't be able to think for ourselves. They want to use the Federal Communications Commission to enforce stricter regulations on media outlets, possibly revisiting the fairness document or similar policies to ensure what they describe as balanced coverage. We hear that a lot, have been hearing that a lot from right-wing media. The project also calls for revisiting media ownership rules, private companies, to potentially reduce consolidation and promote a wider diversity of voices more aligned with conservative viewpoints. Trump is threatening to pull the licenses of NBC Network so he can shut down MSNBC because of its criticism of him. And he's actually phoned the president of ABC Network demanding that they fire comedian Jimmy Kimmel because he makes jokes about it. Oh, poor snowflake. Anyway, let's not forget, at the end of Trump's disastrous first term, he demanded that the head of the U.S. Government Agency for Global Media fire the head of Radio Free Europe, which their mission is to provide accurate and reliable information to audiences in countries where media freedom is limited or restricted. He wants to make us that way. The next one here, combating misinformation, is almost comical, coming from the party that spews misinformation all day, every day on right-wing media channels. But despite the irony, their disinformation task force will be deployed to identify and counteract misinformation, particularly focused on narratives that seem to harm conservative agendas rather. They want to promote only trusted news sources and emphasize supporting those that align with conservative principles, potentially through government endorsements or partnerships. And under legal and legislative actions, they want to change liable laws to make it easier for public figures, including politicians, to sue media outlets for defamation. And they're proposing reforms to Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act to hold social media platforms more accountable for content moderation practices that they perceive to be biased against conservative voices. And finally, they're considering the expansion of government-sponsored media outlets to disseminate official information directly to the public. In 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin signed into law a measure criminalizing reporting that contradicts the government's version of events. Can you imagine outlets like Fox News or Breitbart being our only trusted news sources? Well, that's what they propose. Next slide, please. let this one kind of sink in for a minute. 90% of these items with quotes came from Trump himself. He loves the idea of having a civil war and taking it back for my people. He wants to use the military to shoot peaceful protesters in the knees. He will abandon our NATO allies and let Putin, quote, do whatever the hell he wants with Ukraine, end quote. He calls immigrants vermin and says they are poisoning the blood of our country. And when he says that he'll be a dictator on day one, he means it. He means that anyone in the press that he doesn't like, even private citizens who have dared to defy him or criticize him, will go to jail until Trump figures out how he wants to punish them even further. He promises to use the police and military to round up and put immigrants from certain countries into internment camps and ship them off to countries of his choice, whether they've ever been to that country or not. Remember, the authoritarians like this guy, who upon taking power, ordered the arrest and execution of numerous political opponents and perceived threats, including military officers loyal to the former leader, Joseph Stalin, Saddam Hussein, the butcher of Baghdad, Cuba's Fidel Castro, and of course, Vladimir Putin, who seems to have a problem with his rivals falling out of windows. Tyrants put their potential rivals in their place, not to seize power, but to hold on to it. And I will say it again, if Trump wins, he will never, ever leave office. Next slide. Remember back when Hillary Clinton labeled the people around Trump a basket of deplorables? Well, I tried to envision the deplorables who might fill his cabinet. So these are my selections. Elise Stefanik, she wants to be VP so bad she can taste it. Kash Patel has already said he wants to be FBI director. And can you imagine Attorney General Matt Gaetz? Ooh. Michael Flynn, who was fired by President Obama during Obama's first term, was convinced of lying to the FBI and was paid to speak at the Kremlin and cozied up to Vladimir Putin. How about Tucker Carlson as Secretary of State? Wouldn't that be a hoop? All these people on this page are horrible. And in a second term, there won't be any adults in the room to stop him from executing his worst impulses. Every one of these folks will ask, how high, Mr. President, when he tells them to jump. Next slide, please. The road to authoritarianism starts with the election of Donald Trump. An activist at the meeting I attended a few weeks ago said something I thought that it just stuck with me. She said, realistic fear and knowledge are important persuaders. So every American needs to adopt a hair on fire posture about the implications of a Trump victory, knowing that the Heritage Foundation is ready to pull the trigger on this all these well-defined elements of this plan, 2020, Project 2021, the very minute the race is called for Trump. And for the third time, they will start right away. They will not wait for the inauguration. That is Project 2021, but Jeff has one more slide that he's going to show you. And these are some of the memes that are not on this presentation, but they are in our toolkit. And Jeff, I don't know if you want to show how to use the toolkit so that they can understand where to go get the content.
I can do that. Just give me a second.
Okay, super. When we come back after this, we'll try to address some of your questions. I'm sure you have them, and I hope to be able to answer them.
So this is our homepage, freedomwriterscollaborative.org, and we could send you all the links after our meeting to all the enrollees, as well as the recording of this presentation and Yvonne's wonderful charts. Each of these blocks on our homepage represents a toolkit. And I believe we're over 60 of them right now, 63 or something like that.
Mhm.
And if I click on one of them, and I'm gonna click on the abortion rights toolkit. And here you see it pop up.
Mhm.
If you scroll down, you could see a lot of our posts. And you could select on the left-hand side what platform you want to post to. Or you can see all of them, but let's select just Twitter or X. So now all these posts are formatted for X. I would just have to click on one of these. Unfortunately, Zoom doesn't show a pop-up window at all. So you're just going to have to imagine it, but you just click on it and then you can then click on post, and that post will go to Twitter or whatever platform you're using. That's about it for what I want to show.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So, are there any questions anyone has? I know I reserved it with a fire hose, but
I think Conchita has a number of
Yes,
them. Right.
I've been following, first of all, there seems to be a couple of different people who want to know, has Trump been asked about Project 2025, and has he specifically said he plans to basically implement it? Cynthia Gregory, a bunch of different people have asked this. So I was just wondering, Yvonne, if you could
well,
talk on that.
I don't know if he's been asked about it, but I know he knows about it because he's just desperate to get back in office. And the Heritage Foundation, he is their useful fool. He is a placeholder for them because they want to execute this plan as soon as possible. And he is their choice right now. He's the only one they've got. So I don't know if they know, and he has no attention span. So I doubt if he realizes what they have in store for him. But I know he's right in line with their thinking. He only wants to get back in office so he can grift.
Okay, okay. One person, let me see, I just want to get some of these things. What do you think of Jared Huffman's Congressional Stop Project 2025 Task Force? I know that I watched Jared Huffman on MSNBC, and he talked about it with Stephanie Ruhle. And actually, I had contacted his office, and so we may have him on, ask him to come on and further talk about what he's doing. Could you talk a little bit about what you know about what Jared Huffman is doing?
Well, I only heard about it a couple of days ago on MSNBC, but apparently they're just starting to talk about it. So they're putting together a task force, but they haven't said what the task force mission is going to be, other than to stop Project 2025. So no, I don't have any insight into that. But if you do bring him on as a guest, I would really like to come and listen.
Sure, absolutely. The other thing is, Meryl Teligny said, sounds like the Communist Manifesto. Stalin could have composed this. Very, very scary. I think the main thing right now is definitely we should find out. I mean, but the situation is, from what I can gather, or what do you think? Do you feel from with all of your research that there are obviously 100 organizations that have come in and are part of this coalition? What are they doing to get this message out, and how do we counteract all of this? Yvonne, what is the best way, in addition to using the toolkit? What other things do you think are important for us to be doing to counteract all this all the stuff that the right wing are doing.
We just have to make sure that people understand the gravity. I know you said earlier, or someone said earlier that they talked to a friend about it and he said, it's just a conspiracy theory. No, it's not. So you've got to talk about, get into the specifics of it. I'm going to send you the presentation so that you can share it as well as the recording. But it's up to us. The courts have failed us by going this delay, and going along with Donald Trump, treating him like he's just another person, or treating him like he's special, I should say. So it's up to us. We have to mobilize people and get them to the polls in November, or to vote. That's all. They can't save us. It's us who's going to save us.
Right. I did see Sally. Sally, would you like to ask what your question is? I didn't see it in the chat, but I think you have your hand raised. Well, maybe she left. Okay. Are there any other John, do you have a question? Can you're muted, John. Just unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Is everybody muted?
Okay, you had to do it for me. I couldn't do it myself.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I just wrote a question. See if I can find it so I can read it to you. Do you have it there handy, Conchita? The question I just wrote into you? Here it is. Here it is. I found it. My question is I'm wondering, what do the honchos of the Heritage Foundation et al. Get out of ending our democracy? Why are they so hell bent on ending our system of government? Is it just so that we are is this just so that we are a Christian, I put that in quotes, nation? Is it because they just hate to the core anyone who isn't white and male? I don't understand what their bottom line is.
Well, from what I can see, just because my TV might as well be welded onto MSNBC, so I watch it from morning till evening, and it just seems that what they want to do is they want to make Christianity the only moniker under which we operate, and they don't want any other religions to be recognized. They think they don't know their history, because when the rebels came over here from England, it was to get away from the Mad King George, who wanted them to all be under one religion. So we became a country that was supposed to be country and not in favor of any one religion. But that they're trying to turn that around, and the evangelical community is just hell bent on doing this.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Sally,
I wish there were a better answer, but this is a power grab.
Sally at Archambault, did you have a question? And could you unmute yourself? Could someone, Jeffrey, could you unmute everybody? I think, or somebody muted everybody, and everybody needs to be unmuted.
But while you do that, I just saw Sally's
Yeah,
question.
I'm curious. I love that you have all the different social media formats. That's great. But I didn't notice, and I know TikTok is a different animal, but I worry about TikTok is critical, and did you have Instagram? That's critical. I think
Instagram
Discord's
is
important.
There. What you see for the toolkit is to put static content, post static content. We're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube.
How about Discord?
Discord, not yet.
Okay.
But we're partnered with Demcast, and they are about to go to a Discord channel. So I'm sure we're going to follow.
Right. I just had my two 30-year-old nieces with me and I asked who they were voting for and they
Mhm.
both just kind of shook their heads and like, oh, I don't like Biden. And I'm like, oh my God. So,
Mhm.
you know, I want to reach out to them
Mhm.
and the young people, and we really have to make an effort because they really are not connected. They're really not.
I know.
I worry
know.
about that big time.
Hey,
So we have
Jeff,
to
do you
meet them
mind
where they
bringing up?
are.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask Jeff if he could bring up the last page of the presentation because it has all the links on it to YouTube, Instagram, TikTok.
I
And
saw
we had,
that.
I went and looked at all the TikTok, all of our videos on TikTok. It's been viewed 13,000 some odd times.
Okay.
So we're getting, we're touching those young people.
Well, you should.
No,
What's your handle?
Listening to watching the video of the project.
I'm sorry, I can't hear that.
If you are not asking a question or involved in the discussion, please just mute yourself because we are getting some ambient noise. Thank you. This is Conchita speaking. Wendy, you bring up an excellent point. We just have so many young people that we need to get to.
Mhm.
So, Yvonne, how do we, because that's something that in the club too, we just had someone from the Young Dems, we actually had at the Central Committee meeting, but what they're doing, and we really are wanting to focus on the youth because they are not getting the message and they are critical in this election. So what would you counsel us to do? How do we get the message out and everybody's so busy. So we need to tell people, something that is quick and that they can do easily.
Well, that's a tough one because they're angry about Gaza. They're angry because he's so old. I mean, I don't know what to do about it except to partner with the groups that are registering young people, and they are out there. For example, forgotten the name of the group.
There's a group called Voters of Tomorrow.
That's
If you'd
it.
like, I can put some groups together for you to
Great.
possibly present at a future event focusing on the youth. But there
Yeah,
are 2 or 3 organizations out there that focus on that space.
right. That's something that we definitely have to do. What if
And
you had to evaluate, Yvonne, I know it's hard because there's so much terrible stuff in this document. What would you say are the most dangerous parts of Project 2025? So maybe we know where to focus because there's so much terrible stuff in it, but what is the most dangerous part of this document, do you think?
the whole thing is dangerous because they intend to execute it all at the same time in the first 100 days. So it has to be defeated as a whole.
Oh, I
There's
see.
no one thing that we can point at. And if you look at what's happening right now, they're actually putting elements of this thing in place now through, the education, Moms for Liberty as an example. They're trying to dismantle things now so that we aren't shocked, when it all rolls out at one time.
Well, the one thing though that we do have, there's a lot of energy across the country, or at least there was, and we were winning a lot of special elections over the abortion issue. It seems it seems to tap into women across party lines. There are Republican women, independents, Democrats, all are very scared about that. So I would think that abortion is one area that we should be really fighting in. To wake people up and say, do you want a national abortion ban? And also that they no longer, people who were counting on, help for getting pregnant no longer can with, getting the
IVF.
No more IVF,
yes.
No more IVF. Look at what they're doing. That's what I'm saying. Look what they're doing now. I mean, they're putting this thing in place now. No IVF. Having the eggs now are children. I want to know, okay, are you going to educate the eggs? Are you going to, baptize the eggs? What are you going to do with the eggs? You know, I mean, they're doing things, and the Supreme Court, as I said earlier, they're helping.
It's not close, Billy. Oh, Boston.
They are helping.
Well, I just wanted to, right here, I have something from Eliza Alessio. Thank you for this presentation. How is your organization, Freedom Writers Collaborative, funded?
Oh, good question. We're a nonprofit, indivisible chapter. And our funds come well, they gave us a GROW grant when we first got started back in 2021. But we're also on Act Blue. So we get donations from people who
Want to watch our
support our
show during
toolkits.
halftime?
I'm sorry, would you say that last sentence again, Yvonne?
Oh, I said we were initially funded with a GROW grant, a small GROW grant of $1,500, but through Indivisible, because we're a multi-state Indivisible chapter. But now we get donations from our social media influencers who follow our toolkits. So we get donations through Act Blue.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions? Because I really appreciate
Jay
everybody.
Lang has his hand up for a while.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Who
I had a couple. I had a couple questions. First of all, I put it in the chat. Has Trump come out, been asked about whether he supports this or not? And then the second part of this question would be, how do moderates, particularly moderate Republicans, view this, and do they know about this, the details of this?
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, first question is, Trump hasn't said anything except the gibberish that you hear him spew on at his rallies. So he hasn't said a thing about Project 2025. I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Moderate Republicans.
Moderate Republicans, right.
Project 2025.
Right. The Lincoln Project has been talking about it for sure. And they're the Republicans who said they're the non-Trump Republicans. And there are other non-Trump Republicans out there and religious groups that are pushing back on this stuff. So I'm encouraged to know that we're not alone. It's not just Democrats fighting against this thing.
Mm-hmm. Bridget Bostow. Bridget, you have your hand up. Would you have a question? Okay. Okay, Richard Bruns.
Two parts. A number of the states in the southern states are exacting legislation to overturn votes they don't like. Do you all have a plan to how can we address that and make that not happen? And second part, how do state governments like California, who I would think will be very resistant to being taken over by feds, how can a state combat this, or will they?
It's really hard to say. I know that the southern states, this is another part of what they're doing, trying to disenfranchise people from being able to vote because they want to hold on to power. The best thing those states can do is have their voters vote across the ballot and get rid of those folks. I'm a native Nashville, Tennessean, and it breaks my heart to see what they're doing in Tennessee. Arming teachers because they don't want to give up their gun culture, and it's just horrible what they're doing in Tennessee. But it's all over the southern states. Was it California, Oregon, and Washington have talked about seceding from the United States? And a lot of people I talk to about Project 2025 are trying to find another country to go to if Trump gets back in. It's really sad. I mean, the only thing we can do is make our collective power show up at the polls and show them we're not gonna stand for it. That's all we can do. The courts have failed us. Judge Cannon down there in Florida, I mean, that is the most reasonable trial that he should have gone through.
Usually
And-
the
and-
Supreme Court has supported the independence of states. However, with this Supreme Court, anything's up for grabs. I mean, they just heard this mifepristone case, and after hearing hours of oral argument and everybody submitting their amicus curiae briefs and drawing it out for months,
Yeah.
they decided that the plaintiffs don't have standing. Wouldn't they notice that on the application? Why did they go through all this?
It's part of their plan, takeover plan. The
Well,
Supreme Court is
yes.
bought and sold. I mean, they're useless.
Right. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment or would like to ask a question? Mary Ward, yes, I know you had something in here, Mary. If you'd like to say it, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, I agree. I don't remember who it was talking about the young people's votes. There's a lot of young people who are not going to vote for Biden because they're mad at him. And Peter Coyote, who is the narrator of Bad Faith, has a video where he addresses these young people, and it's really very powerful. And yeah, I don't know how I could pull it up right now in the chat, but is there a way that I can get hold of you to forward that later?
Yes, definitely.
That would be
Because
great.
I agree, the young people are, anyway, he addresses it very well.
Right. Thank you,
Wonderful.
Mary. Yeah,
Oh, that's great.
We are in contact with the Young Dems, the California Young Democrats, and I'd like to forward that on to him, and maybe then they could get that out too. So we'll get that. We'll get that link from you.
Okay.
Joanna, what's the best way for?
Here's Laura. Laura knows. With Jay Lang, Laura's with Jay Lang, just Peter Coyote's wife.
Oh, okay, great. Hi, how are you?
Hi, so I just wanted to say that Peter's posted a couple really powerful videos, and it's on his Peter Coyote Facebook page. And one of them is to not characterize the election as between two white old men who everybody's sick of. It's between autocracy and democracy. And you said earlier, Yvonne, that is what it's really about. And the other thing is he posted about single issue voting, because a lot of people are stuck on that. Like, I'm not going to vote because of Gaza and Palestine, or abortion as a single issue voting. But the other thing he said was about sitting out the election, and that he used a great example that during the 1960s, the counterculture, like all the folks in the counterculture would not vote for Hubert Humphrey because they thought he was soft. Young people, they thought he was soft on the Vietnam War. So they sat it out, and we got Nixon, and then we got Reagan, and then we got this whole cascade of what's happening now because Reagan made a deal with the evangelicals way back. So if people need to understand the history to get what's happening and connect the dots, and so Peter's got some really good YouTubes, and I'll find a way to forward them to.
I'll send you. Let's see. So you're with Jay Lang. I'll send you my email address. I can send it in the chat, and then or Joanna, where would you like her to send it to?
Let me put it in the chat.
Right.
Napa Valley Dems 1@gmail.com.
Right.
That's our.
The other thing I'll just add is we're going to show the Bad Faith documentary in Napa. It's going to be at Napa Valley College and the Cameo Theater, and there'll be information coming out about that because that documentary is stunning and terrifying, just like Project 2025, and they address Project 2025.
When will that be approximately?
End of August and September. And you know what? Now I'm thinking, oh my God, that's too late. It should be sooner, but I don't know if we can.
Well, we're showing it. So we're at the Napa Valley Center for Spiritual Living right now. The group is viewing it. But
Oh.
we're going to be showing it on July 26th here,
Friday evening.
Friday evening, July 26th.
When you say here, where?
Napa Valley Center for Spiritual Living on Coombs Street in Napa.
And you can all go to badfaithdocumentary.com and you can watch it on Amazon Prime, Apple TV. You can watch it on YouTube. There's a number of different places you can watch it.
And Tubi.
Jay, would you mind
Thank
just
you.
writing in the chat, or maybe you already did? We've got a lot going on in the chat. Just write it down so people can, if they want to just copy it, when you're gonna have the movie showing.
If we set up an RSVP system before people,
We
so
do.
that
We
we can control, the number of seats we have is limited.
Oh, okay. Well, it sounds like.
Well, that'll be on our website. So I'll put that on our website and I'll put that information here.
Oh, that
Thank
would
you,
be
Jay.
great.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, first of all, I just want to wrap this up, but please stay because Terry Beck, are you still with us? Because she's over in Hawaii. I'm not sure she is still on. Okay. Because I just want to, first of all, thank Yvonne and Jeffrey for this outstanding presentation. You've really just gotten us all to think. This is why we wanted this. We wanted you to come tonight because I think that people do not realize that this is happening. We're all tired. You know, you get tired out of listening to all this garbage of Trump and all of this stuff that's going on, and you start just saying, oh, I'm just going to do my own little life. This is too precious. We could lose our democracy. And this is one of the reasons that Joanna and I and Terry and a whole bunch of us, Chris Benz and Betty Labastide, that we all decided that we had to have you come and speak to our group because we all feel very, very worried about this situation. And it's now up to each one of us to take this information that we've gotten from Yvonne and from Jeffrey and to get it out. I know there are people here from the unions, there are people from different things. It's now each and every one of us has to be a torch that takes the message out. We don't have time to fool around. We have just under 5 months and people are they don't know what to do and they're just going to say, oh, screw it. I just won't vote or whatever. So that's why I'm so glad you came tonight, Yvonne and Jeffrey. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. And thank you everybody for coming. And we'd love to have you come back. We are going to maybe we'll see what happens with inviting Representative Jared Huffman to come and talk about the new task force, which is just over next door in Sonoma County. And Democrats, he says that there are a lot of Democrats in Congress that are joining it. So that's good. That's the way we're going to get the message out. And I would just, did you want to say any last thing, Yvonne, before we wrap this up?
No, I don't think so, other than to thank you all very much for allowing us to come. And we really appreciate how much energy and enthusiasm that you have for getting this word out. And I think Jeff